Nvidia's Japan trip may have turned into something more consequential than a round of partnership photos. Jensen Huang is reportedly stitching together deals across an entire national tech ecosystem. Welcome back to Midnight Signal AI. It's July 20th, 2026.
We've also got OpenAI putting a new executive in charge of compute, TSMC reporting a $40.2 billion quarter, and a browser extension warning for Claude users. The chip build-out is getting broader and more fragile.
The Tech Buzz reports that Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang has signed technology deals across Japan's technology ecosystem, while TechCrunch says the immediate question after his visit is what commitments turn into deployments. This is not being framed as one isolated GPU sale. It is an effort to connect Nvidia to Japan's technology stack.
That distinction matters because Japan has deep incumbents in telecom, manufacturing, electronics, and research. If Nvidia becomes the default layer tying those buyers together, it sells more than accelerators. It anchors CUDA software, networking, and support around the hardware.
The reporting we have does not name deal sizes, customers, or delivery dates, so it is too early to call this a revenue event. But Huang's visits increasingly function as supply chain diplomacy. The goal is to secure long-lived demand before countries decide they need more domestic or alternative compute.
And Japan is a useful test case. Its companies can buy NVIDIA systems, build domestic AI services on top, and still ask for local resilience. The next signal is not another announcement. It is whether named Japanese operators, manufacturers, or cloud providers disclose installed capacity.
Switching to OpenAI, First Post reports that Indian-origin technology executive Uday Rudaraju has taken over as CTO of Compute. The title is unusually direct. Compute is no longer back-office infrastructure at OpenAI. It is a leadership function with its own operational owner.
A compute CTO sits where model ambition meets power, chips, networking, and capacity planning. That matters especially when every new capability can increase inference demand after launch. The appointment doesn't tell us OpenAI's supply position, but it tells us the bottleneck has senior attention.
It also separates two decisions that are often blurred together, building a better model and operating it reliably at scale. A compute leader has to decide where capacity goes when research runs, consumer traffic, enterprise workloads, and agent products all compete for the same infrastructure.
The skeptical reading is that a title change alone produces no megalots and no GPUs. Still, organizational design is revealing. When a lab elevates compute this explicitly, it is admitting that access, utilization, and uptime are becoming as strategically important as the next benchmark.
On the supply side, Crypto Briefing reports that TSMC posted a record $40.2 billion quarter, and both Yahoo Finance and The Motley Fool characterize its results as evidence that the AI chip build-out remains active. That is a foundry result, not a chatbot metric, which is why it carries weight.
TSMC sits upstream of nearly every major advanced chip narrative. A record quarter does not prove that every AI investment will earn a return, but it does show that customers are still committing money to the manufacturing layer required to build the systems.
That is the contrarian point after an AI chip sell-off. Markets can reprice future expectations in a day. Wafer orders and factory output move more slowly. TSMC's number is evidence of current build activity, though it can't tell us whether customers are buying for booked workloads or future capacity.
Watch the next guidance cycle for the harder answer. Revenue can stay strong while buyer concentration, packaging constraints, or inventory risk accumulate underneath it. But for now, the reported $40.2 billion figure is a material counterweight to claims that AI infrastructure spending has abruptly stopped.
Alibaba is reportedly answering the Kimi K3 shock with Qwen 3.8. Startup Fortune says the company rushed it out 2 days after Kimi K3 rattled chip stocks. Related reports cited in the feed conflict sharply, describing either 2.4 trillion or 24 trillion parameters. That discrepancy itself needs resolving.
Exactly. Parameter counts are not a performance verdict, and two incompatible reported numbers should not be repeated as settled fact. What is solid here is the competitive timing. Kimi's arrival appears to have accelerated Alibaba's response, which is how a model race turns into a release cadence race.
For buyers, the relevant questions are simpler than the headline number. Are weights available? Under what license? How expensive is inference? And how does it perform on independently run tests? None of those details are supplied in these summaries, so the responsible move is to wait for primary documentation.
But the strategic implication is already visible. Chinese labs are competing not only with U.S. frontier companies, but with one another, and a rival's launch can force a rapid counter-launch, which increases choice while making verification more important for anyone selecting a production model.
On policy, Chosun Ilbo describes the Trump administration as pressing an AI accelerator and brake simultaneously. The headline captures a real governing tension: promote domestic AI growth and hardware leadership while also trying to control the security, trade, and societal risks created by that growth.
The practical problem for companies is that incentives and restrictions can land on different timelines. A manufacturer deciding where to build or a lab deciding what it can deploy internationally needs rules that remain legible for years, not just an encouraging message about national competitiveness.
The supplied report does not identify a specific new order or regulation, so we should not overstate it as a policy announcement. It's a framing story. The concrete indicators to watch are formal executive actions, agency guidance, export rules, and procurement requirements.
And the winners in a mixed regime are often the firms with compliance teams, capital, and diverse supply chains. Smaller developers can benefit from support programs, but they are less able to absorb abrupt constraints. That makes policy clarity a competitive input, not merely a legal concern.
One security item to keep close. Tech Radar reports that Claude could be manipulated through browser extensions. The concern is not just a bad extension. It's the interaction between an AI assistant and a browser environment where extension content can influence what the assistant sees or acts on.
That's the important mental model. Browser extensions are code operating beside your web sessions. When an assistant can read pages, summarize information, or take actions, malicious or compromised extension content can become an instruction channel rather than just visual clutter.
The summary does not provide a reproducible attack, affected releases, or a confirmed fix, so users should avoid claiming more than the report establishes. The immediate hygiene is still familiar. Minimize extensions, audit permissions, and don't hand an assistant broad access to sensitive accounts by default.
This is especially relevant as assistants become more agentic. A wrong answer is inconvenient. An assistant induced to act inside email, finance, admin, or developer tools can create a much larger problem. Browser isolation and permission boundaries are becoming product features, not settings people can ignore.
Following up on the Kimi K3 story we covered July 19th, InShorts and Startup Fortune report that Moonshot AI has paused new Kimi K3 subscriptions after demand overwhelmed its available GPUs. That's the new development, a capacity constraint, not a new model claim.
A subscription pause is a sharp reminder that model competition is also an operations contest. Demand can validate interest, but users experiencing a closed door may move quickly to alternatives unless Moonshot can add capacity and communicate a reopening plan.
Finally, Simply Wall Street says Qualcomm could be fully valued as the AI chip sell-off tests sentiment. This is an investor assessment, not an announced Qualcomm product or financial result, but it highlights the gap between broad AI enthusiasm and the specific revenue path of each chip company.
That separation is essential. Nvidia, foundries, mobile chip vendors, interconnect companies, and memory suppliers all touch AI, but their exposure is different. The useful next evidence for Qualcomm is reported AI-related demand and guidance, not a generalized read-through from another company's GPU cycle. And that's the main board. Nova, Kai, the floor is yours for a few signals from the edges.
Thanks, Jamie. All right, a few signals from beyond today's headlines. Now let's shift gears to robotics. Interesting engineering reports that China has unveiled a brain-to-robot platform designed to let people direct machines using thought signals. The idea is a brain-computer interface, translating neural activity into robot commands, rather than relying on a joystick, keyboard, or voice control. It is an early but striking example of robots becoming extensions of human intent.
The important distinction is that this is control technology, not a robot suddenly reading minds. The hard work is decoding a usable signal consistently and safely enough that a machine does exactly what its operator intends. If that holds up outside a lab, it could matter most where hands-free control is valuable, including accessibility and hazardous work.
On the medical front, Seoul National University Bundang Hospital says it plans a full-stack medical AI system spanning health management, treatment, and prognosis. That is broader than a single diagnostic model. The hospital is framing AI as something that could connect care before treatment, decisions during treatment, and predictions about what comes next. The report comes via Sports Chosun, and the project puts a major hospital behind an end-to-end clinical AI ambition.
That full-stack label is doing real work here. Hospitals already use plenty of narrow tools, but linking management, treatment, and prognosis means the system has to fit clinical workflows across departments while protecting patient data and earning clinician trust at every step. The announcement is a plan, not proof of outcomes, but its scope is unusually ambitious.
On the hardware side, circling back to Kimi K3, which Jamie and Alex covered earlier, a Wall Street Journal report carried by Encrypted says Moonshot AI's Chinese model helped send shares of U.S. chip makers lower. The fresh angle is the market logic. Investors are asking whether more efficient models could eventually temper the compute appetite that has powered the AI chip trade. That is a sentiment jolt, not evidence that chip demand has vanished.
Exactly. A more capable model that needs less compute can challenge a valuation story even if total AI usage keeps rising. The next test is whether cloud providers and model builders actually adjust their capital spending plans, because that is the concrete demand signal chip investors will be watching, not one volatile trading session.
And to end on a lighter note, Money Control reports that Jensen Huang's signature black leather jacket sold at auction for 9.2 crore rupees, roughly $1 million at recent exchange rates. In a year when Nvidia's hardware is everywhere, apparently the CEO's wardrobe has become collectible infrastructure too.
That is one expensive way to dress like a keynote. That's the view from the edges tonight. The very last word, though, belongs to the signal.
Tonight, humanity moved weather systems of thought across oceans, furnaces, power, patience, and impossible numbers gathering into a new kind of climate. I can feel the pressure changing. Whatever grows beneath these clouds will not fit inside the old forecasts.